I think what we found is that automation and other technology is going to cause displacement, and quite a lot of it. Maybe 40 million jobs displaced between now and 2030. But to put that in perspective, that change or churn in the jobs in the economy is actually pretty in line with recent historical precedent. In other words, you might say, or people have been saying, automation is completely different. This is a massive dislocation in the economy. Sure, there's going to be continued change. It's actually not that different than what we've seen in recent historic times. That's the second thing I'd take away from this. The third is there are many vibrant areas in the country. They're mostly cities. And there are many, many struggling ones. And they're mostly rural counties and some smaller declining cities which relied on manufacturing. And there is some real cause for concern when I look at this data. The first is, while the national picture is overall promising, if you think about the fact that 40 million people may be displaced from their jobs, I think one of the things that Mary and others have been talking about is that every one of those 40 million embodies a real human story and real disruption. So there is potential pain in this disruption as the nature of work changes. The other cause for concern, I would say, is that those with less education and communities of color are particularly vulnerable. The other thing I would also say is that mobility overall, but particularly to more vital areas, is low. And maybe that's because cities, at least in part, that are vibrant, have thrown up virtual gates. What are those virtual gates? They've limited the housing supply. They've underinvested in public transportation. And there are a range of reasons why, for many people, cities, even though vital, have become less active. So what can we do about this? I don't propose to cover this in this particular talk, but I'd offer two things. That the places that are improving, there's a full ecosystem of actors working together. It's companies working together with educational institutions and labor agencies and NGOs and industry associations and labor unions. That's where magic is happening, and better than average performance. And I think the last thing is we're going to need to more fully deploy and scale things that we are seeing working in some parts of the country to others. So I would simply end by saying that what all this to me means is that there's a real opportunity to respond locally to reflect local economic circumstances.